Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Jenny White.
Good morning, Michael Grande. Don't know why I'm always Jenny White.
I just want to make sure any new viewer knows exactly who we're talking to.
Well, like right now, I think we have 0 viewers on. No, we do have a viewer. Okay. All right. I was like, wow, people, it's dark.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of rain. People are like sleeping in.
Yeah. Isn't it wild how many people come on just throughout the show as we, and
yes.
Like the longer we go, the more people just keep coming on. It's crazy.
Yeah, I know. That's absolutely the case. It is. I mean, if we could go for like 3 hours, we'd probably have 2,000 viewers. Be like, wow, what the heck? And I don't know why that is. I don't know why. I guess people just kind of feel free to tune in when they want to. And, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. You do you. Isn't that our what we say around here?
Yes, ma'am.
You do. We're all for liberty. So you do you.
100%.
Well, but the problem we're going to have, I think, is that with our guest this morning, we're not going to have a whole lot of liberty left.
Yeah. I mean, Julianne's really the best, but man, she brings the worst news all the time.
Well, I mean, she's just telling us what's going on. It's our legislators, our elected officials that are screwing us over and giving our data and our everything. You know who I'd love to have on the show? I mean, never happened, but wouldn't it be great to have Snowden on the show?
Yeah.
Just to talk about all of this. I mean, man.
Yeah. Well, and that's something I want to talk to Julianne about. Maybe these guys are they just that ignorant of the actual technology that exists, maybe, and they just don't really understand the whole concept of that data capture?
Well, I don't know. Julianne's in the wing, so let's bring Julianne on and then see what Julianne says about it. Good morning, Julianne Romanello. Since Michael likes to call me Jenny White, good morning, Julianne Romanello.
Right. Good morning, Jenny White and Michael Romanello.
Yeah.
I don't know what we're doing now, but okay. So how are you this morning?
I'm pretty good. Let me see if is my camera angle okay.
No, you're great.
Okay.
No, it's
I'm
great.
just trying to wake up. We've got the drizzly.
Yeah, you got it too, huh?
Overcast, allergy flaring, Oklahoma manipulated weather. You know about that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There was a bill. Where did the bill go to stop the geoengineering? It was Kendall Sacchieri's bill. I think it even got a hearing.
I don't know. I don't know the status on that, but the operation is so huge that I hate to say it, but I'm doubtful that any meaningful change will come from that. But there's just money in controlling the weather,
Yeah.
There's a lot of money in everything anymore.
You force people to, cope with disasters, and then you have a case for resilience, and we all know here that it's all about resilience and moving to digital infrastructure, because say if you've got fires and you have to evacuate quickly and you accidentally leave your identification behind and it's burnt up, oh, wouldn't it be nice to have digital credentials, safely guarded in the cloud.
Well, look at like I don't. Do you have an iPhone, Julianne?
No, I don't have an
iPhone.
Well,
like an iPhone in their wallet already, in their native wallet. There are like 6 or 7 states that have now coordinated or cooperated with Apple to put your driver's license in the Apple phone in a secure manner, and now you can just use that basically in those states without having to have your driver's license.
Yeah, well, I didn't know about the partnership with Apple, but I was just looking up, some of the information about Real ID, and of course you've got mobile driver's license, that model, which is that's not exactly Real ID. It's a different thing, but we have 25 states now that support digital mobile driver's licenses. And Oklahoma is one. We were one of the early adopters, actually.
Wow, that's shocking. Not.
Well, it is for a lot of people who are conservatives, right? I know that you know this, Jenny, but people think, oh, yeah, we're a red state. We are all about preserving liberty. We're going to, fight the surveillance state. But meanwhile, the innovation bug and the economic development bug, I'm always saying the same thing. I'm going to bore your guests, if we've got any now.
They're slowly coming on. Like I said, I think the weather just
but people think that we're fighting the new world order, but they're just not looking in the right places to see where it's rolling out. And sure enough, we've got the mobile driver's licenses. I remember seeing that at least 5 years ago. They were rolling that out.
Well, I have to say, so I'm ignorant on this. I was kind of focused on the Real ID. What in the world are you talking about?
Well,
mobile driver's license.
It is a driver's license that doesn't require the card. You can store it as a digital credential in a wallet of some sort. Maybe you might be able to access it through the web or an app that you download onto your phone, but it serves as a fully valid Oklahoma driver's license.
Really?
So if you get stopped by the police for speeding through a school zone, which has a mandatory court appearance requirement. I know this. First,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, at least here in Tulsa, I was pregnant driving a minivan on a road that's usually 40 miles an hour. And, those school zone lights happen to be flashing. So I was going 40 and a 25, and yeah, I had to go to court. It was a very strange experience, but I had the card because I don't do the digital mobile driver's license. This was a long time ago. But say I had the mobile driver's license, I could have either just showed my phone or I could have asked the officer to kindly look up my information for me. And you don't have to carry a card.
So wait, somebody would actually ask a law enforcement officer to look up their information.
That's what I love about you, Jenny. You bring it back to the real issue. Because that's our problem right there.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I'm not even able to who really? Excuse me, officer.
Law-abiding citizen Jenny White.
Have all my data and let me I can't. No, I can't do that. I mean, I can't even, obviously I couldn't do that, but I can't even imagine somebody thinking that. I can't.
Well, but maybe they're nervous because they've seen the flashing lights on the little motorcycle that was waiting on the side street. See, I've got a chip on my shoulder about this. I actually tell my kids, because I still take the same route, and I say, look, it's Wednesday. It's toward the end of the month. You just watch and count how many people are waiting to ticket, a mom who's driving to wherever. And don't we have better things to do? And this is an arbitrary standard. I said, you guys need to really pay attention and think about why, if you're not hurting anyone, there's no crime committed, why are you being forced to pay, and I think this was like 7 years ago. I had to pay a $300 fine. And
I've gotten a big one before. Yeah.
Yeah. And there was I wasn't hurting anyone. I mean, the whole reason I was going 40 or whatever it was, I mean, the real
105,
40, in a 25 was because there was no one around. I had a clear shot. Right.
Yeah.
So I said, this is pre-crime, kids. Watch out.
Well, I mean, if you think about that, really, laws are there to protect you from other people and vice versa. And vice versa. So literally, are you breaking a law if you're doing something when nobody else is around?
Right.
I mean, I think that's kind of an interesting place to go, because I don't see how you could be breaking a law if nobody else is around and you decide not to stop at stop signs. I live in the country. Do you know how many corners have stop signs?
No. Is it a lot?
A whole bunch, because they don't want, and I will say this, I know for a fact a lot of that has to do with liability, right?
Yes.
Because if you have car insurance, then they want to know, did you run the stop sign? They want to determine who's at fault, right? So some of that is just specifically for that reason, I would imagine. But then there are other people who say, well, you really do need to be careful. Okay, I'm a big girl.
Yeah.
And when I get to those stop signs and nobody's coming, I make sure, because my head actually swivels. Uh-oh, what happened to Julianne?
Oh, no. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
We
just can't see you.
Restart your browser. Oh,
no, really?
This says your browser is locked connection to your camera. What does that mean?
I have no idea. Your browser is not connected. Why would it just suddenly do that?
I don't know. This is silly.
You may just have to go out and come back in, Julianne.
Yeah.
Oh man. Let me see if I'm gonna try to stop the camera.
Oh. And she did. She stopped it. It said,
remember, she was having those cameras.
But then she's back. What happened there?
I don't know.
Who knows with these things? You know what I'm saying?
My computer is about as old as that speeding ticket that I got. So
that probably does have something to do with it.
Probably time for an upgrade, but I I fight that stuff.
I know. Trust me. I do too. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for me. At this point, I'm like, you know what? I'm old.
Yeah.
My give a crap's broken. Okay, whatever. But seriously, I mean, that's a really great question. I mean, why we even have some laws if the whole idea of a law is to protect you from other people and vice versa. So, I mean, that's a really great point. But what I want to know is, did you happen to look it up and find out when we adopted by law this idea that you can have a cloud-based license? Because I worry about that now that you've said that when it comes to election security.
Yeah, well, there was a recent executive order that I think touched on that very thing, and I did not read through it carefully. So someone else is definitely going to have to check me on this.
You mean the one on election security?
Yes.
The governor's one on election security.
No. I think this was from the White House in the last day or two.
You're gonna laugh when I tell you this. Are you ready for this?
I need a laugh, so yes.
Okay, watch this. I've lost my tab. All right, here it comes.
There you go.
It was actually on my computer because it was in my files because I was thinking about trying to figure out what it said, and it does. It.
Yep. Okay. So,
Enforcing the citizenship requirements for federal elections. So that's one. And it says a documentary proof of United States citizenship. But that's not your driver's license anyway.
Well, if we have a real ID, then
we know. Fair enough.
Yeah, because it says right there, Jenny. Look in B, in B, right there.
Okay.
For the purposes of the documentation, you got passport, you got real ID right there is B.
Yep, there you go.
Or official military identification card, valid federal state issued government issued photo identification.
If such identification indicates that the applicant is a United States citizen, or if such identification is otherwise accompanied by proof of United States citizenship.
So if you don't have a real ID, Jenny, you may not be able to vote in the future if you don't have you don't bring your passport or something.
Well, oh gosh.
And I think, my son just turned 16 and the girl over there, he was not going to get a real ID. And she said it's mandatory by.
No, it's not. That's a lie.
So they just went ahead and got it for him. But
yeah, no, that's a lie. It is not mandatory. It's not. As a matter of fact, who just addressed that recently? Somebody that we know just recently addressed the fact that it's not mandatory. It is not mandatory. That real ID is not mandatory. But here's what's going to happen. Do what?
Well, I was going to ask Julianne, is there any biometrics in the real ID right now, like fingerprint or anything attached to it? Do you know?
I was trying to look that up, and it's fuzzy to me. I can't exactly figure that out. So if you go to the DHS, Department of Homeland Security website, it says that real ID, you in order to get that seal, you have to have a social security card, 2 forms of residency, and all of these sort of standard documents. I mean, It doesn't, when you read through it, it doesn't seem quite so scary as as we know it is, right?
Right.
And I was trying to remember back when I had to go, this was probably right after my ticket, several years ago, when I had to go to the tag agency, and they said, do you want a real ID? And, you had to, there was a special camera, I think, that you had to pose in front of, and and you had to put your fingerprints in. But if I recall, I think you have to do that for a standard Oklahoma driver's license
Yes, you
anyway.
do, because it hacks me off. And,
Yeah.
I'm like, why
Yeah.
do you need my thumbprint? Yes, you do. Our driver's license is a biometric license. So that's why, I mean, there are a couple of people I know who simply won't get a driver's license because they're like, it's a
Yeah.
biometric driver's license. Well, at that point, for me, we adopted kids. And if you adopt kids, you go through the
Oh, yeah.
ringer and they make you cough up all kinds of stuff you would never want to do. So my thumbprints and fingerprints are already in a database because I adopted kids. I mean,
Well,
I mean,
and if you got a concealed carry license before the constitutional carry, I mean, you were completely fingerprinted also at that point in Oklahoma, at least.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah. So so at the state level, they're already incorporating a lot of these biometrics. I think the difference with Real ID is that it's setting a national standard that's going to unify the efforts of separate states and unique jurisdictions, so that we can, trust in the security of, say, Oklahoma's ID versus Utah's ID versus New Hampshire's. So, so the push for Real ID, what I think it is, and they have been flubbing this thing up for how many years?
Oh my gosh.
And
well over a decade.
Yeah, it's been a
Yeah.
long time.
Mhm.
And I found an article or a press release on, I think it was Biometric Update, which is a great site for your for your viewers to look at.
Huh.
It's an industry site. It has all sorts of information
Oh,
about
wow.
global and domestic, innovations in the field of biometrics. And, I think it was from Biometric Update that it said that they're still going to sort of use discretion in enforcing Real ID requirements for another 2 years from now, so till 2027. So they're flubbing up the rollout of Real ID because people aren't complying, and I think that it is really to show the ineptitude of our federal system, our constitutional system, so that a new solution can be introduced. So just to recap, you have states like Oklahoma that already have biometrics incorporated into their IDs.
Yes.
So getting the Real ID stamp isn't that much different in terms of what data the government at any level has on you. But
This site is scaring me. I can't listen to you because it's scaring me.
it's a great site.
No, it's not a great site, Julianne.
Put in the search, put Oklahoma mobile driver's license or digital driver's license.
Well, and I saw when you said that mobile ID, I was looking, Julianne. It looks like they discontinued that last year about this time.
Oh, did they? I wonder why.
Because of
People were
the
using it?
multiple use cases. It says in that Service Oklahoma discontinued that. It looks like that.
Discontinued the mobile ID?
Yeah. Because there's
Oklahoma.
a thing.
Well, this is what it says. Oklahoma unveils overhaul of driver's license system with fails and IDEMIA.
Yeah, and that IDEMIA is what they use, at least here in Tulsa. It is they do background screenings and all sorts of credential management for the public schools, and they're like one of the top providers for the military.
Oh, that's great. The new system will align perfectly with our mission of meeting Oklahomans where they are. You mean finding Oklahomans where they are?
Right. Yeah.
Meeting Oklahomans where they are by creating mobile ID credentials and digital wallet integrations, but also further shows our commitment to best-in-class customer service.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Customer service, right? Because we're not going to be citizens individuals, we are customers.
Oh my gosh, that's so true.
Yeah.
We are thrilled to be able to modernize and digitize Oklahoma driver's license systems of record, ensuring greater efficiency, because it's all about efficiency,
Yep.
accessibility, and convenience. It's all about that too, for all Oklahomans accessing driver services. What do you mean accessing driver services?
Yeah, because you have to have the credentials so that you have the privilege of, traveling on the roads.
This
Yep.
isn't just an upgrade, it's a complete transformation of our driver's license system and a game changer for Oklahomans. We probably better figure out what the heck that means.
Who's saying that, Jenny?
This is okay, hold on a second. I don't read that carefully. Jay Doyle, CEO of Service Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So maybe we need to have Mr. Jay Doyle, CEO of Service Oklahoma, on this show so he can talk about how it is that we don't have just an upgrade, but a complete transformation of our driver's license system.
And I agree with Kelly. Kelly's last comment down there. I mean, this is 100% just to pave the way for, pay by the mile, tax you by the mile driver system. 100%.
Yeah.
And Michelle said, in the realm of driver's licenses and state identification, Oklahoma's partnered with companies like Thale and IBM, what we just said. And you can see the plans for how these things will be used here too, with the corresponding planned years. Tech Radar, World Governments Summit. I don't like the World Government Summit. I'm not even doing that. What is the deal?
Julianne's getting hacked.
No, it's this cable, I think. Can you still hear
yeah.
me?
No,
Okay.
I can see, we can see you, but it does look like it is a cable issue.
Yeah.
And then Michelle points out the statewide longitudinal databases have fields for biometric data for students, and that's right. Absolutely. Yeah.
What are they collecting, Jenny?
They collect blood. This is all in an article I wrote like a million years ago. They're collecting blood type. What else was it? There's a whole ream of biometric data that's actually in the SIF, in the state informational framework. So, I mean, it's in there. We need to get you and Julian a new computer. That's what we need to do.
No, my computer's good now.
It is now?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to remove this so we can see. Touch biometrics. I'm really kind of very upset by this.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. Maybe I need to call and find this guy and go, hey, Mr. Doyle, you need to come on and just tell us what this is all about.
Yeah, it's a bad deal.
Well, and think about, once you have that truly digital biometric ID, that's going to be used everywhere. It's going to be used in all your health records, anything that there's a single record of you is going to be attached to that. So now there's just going to be another web of data that's got all the, someone's going to have access to all of it in basically in one place.
Right, because one of the dominant narratives is the need to break down silos, right?
Oh, they say that all the time, that horrible, horrible word, silos. Who gives a crap? We put brain in them. It's a good thing.
Down. And so, so the real ID badge, it's a little badge, it's a credential, it gives you access. And I really want to talk about how it affects air travel, because that's the biggie.
For sure.
That effort is just to start homogenizing state efforts, right? Because we've talked on this show before about how the implementation of the world government, or maybe we should say world governance, it depends on getting rid of the states here in the US as separate sources of authority and accountability to the public, right? Mm-hmm. You have to break down the checks and balances that were established in the Constitution,
right,
between states and the Fed. So this is just one it's an incremental step toward moving to a universal digital ID here in the US, which is a step toward global ID. And I think the ineffectiveness of real ID, the flubbing up of the rollout, the non-compliance, that to me looks just like lots of patterns that we've seen over and over again. So, I told you, Jenny, on a text message that really I'm just good at recognizing patterns.
Yeah.
And then you can look this stuff up and verify your hypothesis. But, we're dealing with a satanic system,
Yeah.
and there's no creativity in Satan. There's just destruction. So that's why he has to use these formulas and templates over and over again. There's nothing new introduced. So if you look at Real ID and its rollout, it is a mishmash that's going to make even the federal government's effort to homogenize state, identity credentials look ridiculous. And so who's going to step up and provide a wonderful solution to the inefficiencies of government and the inability of our government to meet the desperate need for secure identity systems? You're going to have the private sector step up.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think it's really interesting to look at how Real ID is inextricably tied to efforts to travel, or what's needed to travel, and the TSA. So we know that TSA is under DHS. So
Yeah.
Transportation Security Administration is under the Department of Homeland Security. So you would think that they might have aligned visions of what's needed to secure our domestic air travel infrastructure, right? You might think that those two would go together. So, and DHS it's their initiative. Real ID is their initiative, DHS.
Yeah.
So TS and one of the main use cases for Real ID, or one of the cases that is necessitating our need to have that little badge on state IDs, is to protect domestic air travel, right? So it says, if you don't get the Real ID by May 7th, you will not be able to travel domestically on an airline. You will not be able to access military bases, some federal buildings or sites, and nuclear power plants. So it's actually a pretty limited group of situations that would necessitate anyone having the Real ID badge. The big
Well,
one
but I
that's
mean,
going
if
to
you
affect the
want to,
most people is the air travel, right?
correct. Yes.
And so that's why I think, okay, let's look at what TSA has required so far and what TSA has done, because TSA, remember, is under the Department of Homeland Security. So if you remember back in the COVID era, when everyone was afraid to touch anything or do anything, and it was a pain to travel. I mean, ever since 2001, it's been a pain to travel. It's no accident that the Twin Towers were hit by airplanes, right? You saw this massive rollout of I'm not sure when TSA pre-check went into effect, but I remember right after COVID, you had all of the clear portals popping up at airports. And Clear is a biometric identity credentialing firm that you sign up with them, you pay a monthly fee, it stores all of your identity credentials. Then you just go up to this giant screen, it scans your face, and you get to go through the security line at the airport. Now, Clear is a private firm, right? And TSA contracted with Clear while they were also doing the TSA pre-check. So to me, this looks sort of like a pilot program. But the Clear program, and you have to pay for both. You isn't that hilarious? For TSA pre-check, you have to pay extra money so that you can skip the lines and go through fast. You pay them to keep your biometric data on file. And you pay Clear a little bit more because you think that this private sector solution, which is, they have a partnership with TSA. So TSA has its own TSA pre, and they also have a partnership with Clear Technology to speed you through. And you pay more for the Clear, I guess, because it's supposed to work better. So
Well, it's a private company. I think that's what you were starting to get into, is that we feel like even though we seem to trust it no matter what, we still somehow rationally understand that government is bad and we don't want government to have this much information. But it's a private company.
yeah,
They'll
but
help us.
it's
They'll
sort of
protect
not.
us because they're private and we pay for it. It's
Exactly.
such a bad, I mean, it's just bad thinking, but we're propagandized into believing that kind of stuff. And
Well,
private companies go out of business. Private companies sell your data to other.
23andMe, perfect example, Jenny. Think about
23andMe.
all of the genetic data that's literally being sold all over the world right now because that company went
Bingo.
bankrupt.
Yeah,
Bingo.
exactly. And so if you look at, how these partnerships sort of develop and how these test cases roll out, then I think we're presented with an interesting scenario where TSA pre is insufficient for air travel after May 7th. You still have to go and get your real ID badge. Now, that's going to be a pain, isn't it? And Clear scanning, or whatever you call it, the Clear app, the Clear credential, I guess I should say, is also going to be insufficient for air travel after May 7th. So Department of Homeland Security has this requirement that it is now imposing on TSA, and TSA has its own identity solution, and it has a partnership with a private company, Clear, to offer an identity solution. And both TSA pre and the Clear are not going to work without the real ID, even though, as I mentioned, they are already noticing that they're going to have problems. So they're talking about sort of loose or discretionary enforcement of real ID requirements to travel, for another 2 years. So what I see, to sum this big picture up, this convoluted picture that makes sense to me, is that you have a big mess brewing, and someone's going to have to come in and clean up the mess, and they're going to say real ID isn't sufficient, Clear isn't sufficient, TSA pre is not sufficient, we need a new solution. And America 2025, I might add, it explicitly mentions privatizing TSA. Now, why do I keep talking about TSA? It's because air travel is the major reason why anyone would get the real ID.
Yeah.
So there's something going on here. And if you look at what the private airlines are doing on their own, you have, like, Delta has its own digital ID, and it offers,
Yeah.
it offers participants different rewards and perks for participating in it. So they're giving these little carrots to get you to get their own digital ID so that you can speed through, because somehow everyone needs to speed through the lines at the airport.
Wait. So do you not understand, Julianne, that it's extremely inconvenient to stand up and wait more than 2-3 minutes? I mean, I don't know, how can you stand to wait for 2 or 3 minutes standing someplace. I mean, I don't know how
My
anybody
feet
does
hurt.
it.
I'm 44. My feet hurt, Jenny.
I get so tired of listening to the boo-hooing and the crying and the whining. I had to wait 5 whole minutes at McDonald's, and you're just like, oh,
Well,
I
Yeah, but
can't
part of the
take.
devil's
conditioning.
advocate. It should
Ugh.
not be that difficult to travel. We should not have to go through the body scanners and
Oh
take off
God,
shoes.
no.
We shouldn't have to do that. That is a mess, and it's been artificially constructed to make people get used to feeling like cattle.
Yeah.
So I get that
Look at
people
what
are
Lisa says.
irritated.
We could speed through much easier if we didn't have to stop and bow to TSA. And she actually said TSA should be. Didn't I see something where the Trump administration was talking about getting rid of TSA,
Yeah,
or was that
that's
just
America 2025. Yeah.
that is in America 2025?
Yes. And so here you have this problem and reaction, and I'm just waiting for the solution. The solution is going to be a universal blockchain based digital ID
Yeah.
that, like Michelle was saying earlier, it's going to tie to your student records. And like Michael said, it's going to tie to your medical records. And Jenny, I sent you that little
I got it.
white paper from the
I got
Office of Biometric Identity Management, which is again under DHS.
Is this the one you're talking about?
Yes, look at that right there. You've
Well,
got
honestly,
fingerprints.
it's gross. Look, you've got DNA on the far right side.
Yep.
DNA. DNA, people.
Yeah. Your voice recognition, your facial recognition, iris scanning, and fingerprinting. Like it is right here. So that, and if you look down through that
Yeah.
document, you'll see there is a paragraph that talks about aligning all sorts of stakeholders, and it says, we want to, I think it's, yeah, if you go to that goal three,
One of your
maybe.
buzzwords there, Julianne, stakeholders, one of your buzzwords.
Oh, I just want to put a stake through the stakeholders.
Me too.
Let me see if I can find it. If I can juggle the windows on my,
Expand use of biometric identity services, objective 1.2.
It's a little farther down. If we go to here, I've got it.
Okay.
Okay, page. Okay.
Is it under implementation?
Yeah, I think so, but I'm looking at objective 3.2 here.
Okay.
Where
objective.
it says OBIM continuously guides the development of new biometric capabilities, and we're going to leverage its expertise and leadership, establishing the application of a digital identity domain. And then underneath that, underneath that, let me see, I can't find my mouse cursor here. Oh, darn it.
Align efforts with the new mission, vision, and goals. Engage with stakeholders. Do they mean citizens of the United States? Do you suppose that's what they mean?
They mean everyone. If so, there is a section that talks
That
about
everyone who is a citizen is a citizen. It doesn't matter what they do. They're a citizen.
It
Oh my God.
it talks about the HSE, which is
here it is right here.
Security
The way
Enterprise.
forward. Implementation of the strategic plan hinges on leveraging both OBIM's biometric identity expertise and its critical partnerships with DHS, the Department of Justice, Defense and State, and the global HSE. Now, what is HSE? Homeland Security Administration?
No,
that'd
it's
be
Homeland Security Enterprise. And so that is where Homeland Security
No.
has a new aligned vision for becoming one Homeland Security. And you know that's a buzzword. Look at Rosa Corey's work on the word one. Any place you see one Bay Area or something, that was where she started looking at these things. One world order, one health, it doesn't matter. That's it. You know, it's one of those little signals. So that HSE, it's not just the agency, the governmental sort of agency that we know as Homeland Security. It includes all of their private partners. It includes individuals, and nonprofits. It just goes on and on. There is absolutely no accountability.
Well,
And
it's
then,
like what they did with Service Oklahoma.
yeah, exactly right. So it follows this template. And so if we
Yeah.
think, you know, oh, here it says engage. Oh, you found the engage with stakeholders. And
Yeah.
I
And
again,
Julianne, real quick, that this Office of Biometric Identity Management, who are they under? What, like they're talking about all these partnerships with DHS, everybody else. Who actually governs them? Are they?
No,
they're under DHS, or they are it, you know,
it
so
says Department of Homeland Security. So Office of Biometric Identity Management under the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. And this is their strategic plan.
Yeah.
yes. So
And then,
if you look on page 8, align the efforts with new mission, vision, and goals, it says, it this is the second sentence under this enables the organization to embrace its role as a centralized solutions hub for biometrics and identity, operating as the business owner for the largest government biometric identity system in the United
wow.
States.
Look
I mean,
at
that's
this.
shocking.
Oh my God, this is horrifying. Ensuring wherever there is a human in the loop,
Yeah.
biometric and identity solutions provide the assurance that decision makers need to help to protect the HSE.
Yeah. The centralized solution
What
hub.
the heck?
Wow.
It's so bad.
And because you're dealing with personal data from people, there's going to be zero transparency. You're not going to be able to do any kind of FOIAs or open records or anything.
I
Right.
can't even believe this sentence that makers need to help protect the HSE
Yeah.
from humans.
Yeah.
That's basically what that says. We
Yeah.
are protecting a federal agency from humans.
Yeah, and it's not just a federal agency. It is a nebulous conglomeration of all sorts of interests
Ugh.
that are aligned under this one Homeland Security objective. So there are no limits to who's involved in this HSC or HSE. I'm sorry.
HSE.
Yeah. I wish I've got it, you know.
And paving the pathway to one world everything now. You've got a
Yeah.
pathway being paved.
Well, and
Exactly.
you've got an excuse. You've got a reason because you have to protect the Homeland Security.
Yeah. Well, and think about how they're
Whatever.
going to sell it. You know, they're going to say, "Hey, we've got all these illegals. They don't have all these credentials, all these proper identification. You have all that. We can identify you easy. We're going to be able to find these people even faster and easier now." And everybody's going to be like, "Yeah, let's do it."
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, election security, that is,
Yeah.
I mean, this new
Yeah.
executive order on election security, this is what entices naive conservatives to go along with this stuff.
And it's funny that you say that because if Biden was saying it, they would be like, we're not doing that. But then
Right.
Trump comes out and say, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He's going to save
For
us. He's
sure.
going to dismantle government. Okay. That we should have been dismantling government a long time ago. We never should have let it get to this point. But there's a right way to do it, and that is by repealing the laws that establish, for example, the Department of Education. If you want to you don't do it with an executive order, you repeal the law.
Here, Julianne, high five. Because that's what I said on the podcast the other day when we were talking to David Bullard, and he said, well, we want to get rid of and Trump's doing this. And I'm like, but it doesn't matter, because there's still law underpinning that. And you still have the Elementary and Secondary Education Act out there. And that still ties into how much money states get. And that still tells states what to do. So you saying I'm getting rid of this building and the people in the building doesn't solve the problem.
Right. But it decreases the wait in line, so to speak. It just makes, it gives you a sort of quick fix. It makes you
It does
think
put some
that you're
money back in the
speeding
budget.
through and you're doing something good. But really what it's doing is training people not to care about law at all. And it's training people to think that the Constitution doesn't matter and the laws that have been passed to this point don't matter. Ugh. Look,
Well,
I don't know if you can still hear
it's the
me.
cable. It's just
Yeah,
the
we can hear
cable.
you.
See if you can't wiggle it and make it. It's just got
Okay.
a short in
I'm
it.
really trying not even to touch this, but sometimes I talk with my hands. There we go. Okay. So, why should we not get real ID? You shouldn't get it because you really don't need it. And it's good that people are not complying because, I'll try to find, oh goodness.
But so many people that I know of, you say that people aren't complying, and maybe that is kind of overall people aren't complying. But I talk to so many people. My dad said, well, I can't, I won't be able to fly if I don't get a real ID. So dad got a real ID, and I'm like, and dad's 92 years old, so it's not. It's not like he's got a lot of data left to get out there. So I get that. But that's not the point. The point of the matter is, I just see people falling for this crap,
Yeah.
and like what happened with your son, Michael. I mean,
yeah, too many people are still doing it, to be sure, but it's not at the level that the government and the powers that be want it to be at yet. So it's good that we're having the trouble with implementation, and that TSA is saying, well, we need, well, I don't know, as I say it out loud, they're saying we need to have the ability to use discretion in enforcing the real ID requirement because nobody has it. So there's, like I said, they're still pushing it out till 2027, but that does give, I mean, lots of arbitrary discretion to TSA, which might start to make people angry, and then we're going to privatize the thing. Ugh. That there are so many different dynamics at play here, but at least it's good that we're still seeing the conversation about not enforcing it because not enough people have it. So that is good. So we need more people to refuse that so that at least we can't get to the point where, the powers that be can say, oh, yay, everyone has it now.
Well, but here's a question I want to ask somebody, and I wish we had somebody who was really great constitutionally, and I think we may need to farm this out to another organization that works in the constitutional law area. I don't see how it's constitutional under my First Amendment right to, and I would say First Amendment, and maybe it's something else. Maybe it's more like Fifth Amendment. I don't know, because basically I'm giving up my Fifth Amendment right to privacy, basically, if in my own papers, if I'm going to have to papers, please, everywhere you go, right? I mean, and I don't think people understand that. I mean, you kind of have in your mind, Zai, an idea of foreign countries where you get up to a border and there's a gate and there are people standing there, papers, please, and and they're like, oh, this is bad. I can't imagine something like that. But then they don't equate that with the real ID. And they don't understand that the more data that the government has on you, the more it's just exactly like going up to a barrier in a foreign country and have them yell papers, show me your papers. There is no difference there. And that's what I just can't understand. And so I want to have somebody who's skilled in constitutional law tell me how it's constitutional to make me give up my privacy and my papers to get on an airplane when I'm an American citizen and I should be able to go wherever the hell I want to go.
Yep.
Well, is it constitutional to even have to have a driver's license in the first place to drive your own car, not for commercial purposes? I mean, that we can go down that road forever, Jenny, with literally everything.
And I guess you're right.
We've been desensitized into just that's how it is. So that's what everybody does.
Yeah, and there's the confusion about things like air travel anyway, because you have private airlines that are offering the service, but then the airports are, who are they owned by? Well, I mean, I think that they're owned, a lot of times
it's a
by
public-private partnership.
Yeah, industrial authorities and, that have been set up as.
And that time she was gone. Yeah, because I think Will Rogers is its own authority under Oklahoma City. So Oklahoma City has a transportation authority set up, and the airport goes under the transportation authority. But then there are also private companies because, like Delta, they have to pay to have a hub there.
Yeah.
So that there's some private something there. Oh, Lisa makes a really good question. Really good. Who exactly are we protecting? Terrorists still find a way. Should we ban driving so we don't have car bombings? All this is done to restrict law-abiding citizens. To me, that's the 100% bottom line, isn't it? I mean, if you are a terrorist, you're going to figure out how to terror. It doesn't. Laws don't mean anything to you because you have an ideological purpose that has to be met. And so that's what you're going to do. Laws don't matter to you.
And let's not forget that there is a such thing as government sponsored terrorism. It'll just make it that much easier for those guys to do whatever they want in the first place.
Michael's keeping it real.
Yeah, I don't have a problem saying that.
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad Lisa mentions she raises the question about driving because, and I've got a book. I'm afraid to move because of my silly cable, but there's a book on my shelf that I want to show you because it's called The Future of American Transportation. And I picked it up at an estate sale and I thought, oh, this is, something that I wouldn't normally read, except I'm just interested in how we're going to see the one world government roll out. And it talks about, I'm going to botch this argument. I'd have to have the book right in front of me, but it talks about regulating travel. And it says, that American travel is difficult to regulate because on the one hand, you had railroads that were operated with sort of the same kinds of common carrier provisions as pipelines. And this goes back to English common law and how the government could regulate the fees charged for carriages that would provide transportation services to people. So you have to register as a common carrier, and then you can't charge too much. So there were these laws in England way back to protect the public and its ability to move around, right? So if you look at the history of American transportation, railroads could be regulated in that way, and pipelines could be regulated in that way, and airlines could be regulated in that way. And part of it has to do with the kind of massive infrastructure needed to lay a pipeline, like or lay railroad tracks, and you can't move those things around, and they're going to establish areas of economic development. So the government has an interest in regulating that to some extent. Cars, automobile transportation poses a lot of problems because cars can move about. You have to have the roads built by, some larger authority, but everyone owns, you can own your own vehicle, and you don't have to have a centralized hub for switching lanes and all of
Right.
this.
Mm-hmm.
So the book, which
Unless
is
you're in
definitely,
Texas.
the book is arguing in favor of implementing the New World Order,
Really?
yes, I've got to get it. I mean, I'm sorry
Okay,
to
we'll
show
go get
you
it.
my
Go
backside.
get it. That's okay.
Let me see if I can find it super fast. Future of American transportation.
You're on camera right now, so you
I
won't be able
know.
to find it. And if you turn off your camera, you'd go right to it like a magnet. That's just the way it works.
Right, but I'm afraid because it keeps on messing up anyway. Here, look. Okay. Here we go. Can you see it?
Yeah. The future of American the American Assembly.
Yeah.
What is the American Assembly?
They're a New World Order terrible group that this was, I want to say, okay. Oh, so see, it takes a long,
they
hard look.
are horrible. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. It says a long, hard look at where was it? The issues behind our current dilemma to reveal such problems as inadequate federal legislation, impractical planning, and actual misappropriation of public funds, analyses of existing transit systems, and the often overlapping and contradictory laws that regulate these public carriers reveal that we must stop following outdated standards and cease using equipment incapable of meeting present transportation needs. And so it basically argues for comprehensive urban planning and national planning. So this is what we've talked about on this show, like the development of these comprehensive plans, and what all of this convoluted little history that I have so roughly sketched, or the argument of this book. It goes to show that regulating automobile traffic, it poses a huge problem to the planners and designers, and they have identified air travel as one of the better or more suitable avenues through which to start implementing this massive national planning scheme. So when we look at what Real ID is designed to affect, it is not going to, no one's going into nuclear power plants. Very few people are going onto military bases. The number of federal buildings that require Real ID badges is, I would guess, minimal, but everyone is concerned about being able to fly. So when we look at what is this about, it is definitely about using this sector to create restrictions on Americans' ability to move and gaining control over this prong of our transportation infrastructure, because it's much easier to regulate than driving. You don't have to have the Real ID badge in order to keep driving. that's going to pose other challenges. But this is the Real ID is an effect. It's an attempt to control air travel, and I think to totally privatize it. And as part of that process, to get Americans used to a global, well, I should say national ID first, because regulating the automobile traffic and requiring a national driver's license, that's going to take a little bit more work.
That makes sense. Well, so look at this. So this American Assembly, so I'll bet you what you
Columbia
found.
University.
Bingo.
Yeah,
That was
there you
your
go.
first. That was it. Your first
Yep.
one. And people don't know how bad Columbia University is. My God, that was the seat of all progressivism, and it still is. So they've moved. Now they're called Insight. Insights thrive in unlikely company. And at Insight Institute, scholars, change makers,
Oh, I love those guys.
artists, and others unite to engage the social world in surprising new ways.
Great transformations like Service, Oklahoma.
Oh my goodness. Look at this. Isn't this adorable? Totes adorbs.
Well, everybody was smiling in that picture, Jenny.
Oh,
It
I
looked
know.
nice.
They're so diverse. And look at this dude. He's got a little hat on
Yeah.
like he's a
Well,
Mountie
and
or
think about,
something.
think about the financial side of all these deals. The government is always going to partner with people like this, companies, the public-private partnerships, because they want that data. All those people, all those places, that's their data collection little agents out there, just collecting it all for them.
Yeah. And so
This
then
is
you have this
so
thing
bad.
like Homeland Security Enterprise. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at all if there were a very close link between this insight and research that is being fed into the Department of Homeland Security.
Well, yeah. I mean, all you have to look at is what their American Assembly emerged from Dwight Eisenhower's vision for educational institutions to take a more active role in addressing complex social and political challenges. So there you go. I mean, and that's the thing we've talked about so many times on this program, Julianne, is the fact that we have these private organizations that are taking over all of our lives. And they were I was on the phone with Melissa Remington before we started the program. And she was talking about, well, a number of our educators took a trip to Finland to look at the Finland way of educating kids, right? So because they're in the top, whatever. Well, most socialist countries are. People who steal other people's money usually somehow manage to come out on the top because stealing works, I mean, it does. It's not morally, it doesn't work morally, but stealing works. You get lots of great stuff by stealing it. So, they were trying to figure out how all these educators were able to afford to go to Finland for 2 weeks or whatever it was. And lo and behold, a private organization funded it. And I'm like, but that's exactly what they do with the Turkish schools, the rainbow schools. These are all basically madrasas. It's pushing the Muslim religion essentially. And but if the Turkish Raindrop Society gives legislators money to go to Turkey and shows them how great Turkey is, then they're all like, oh, well, Turkey's not so well, Muslims, well, and so it's so ridiculous. Finland is the most media literate nation in Europe, currently getting flooded with migration from Russia. Yeah, I don't think I don't think I would say that
They're the model of perfection.
really honestly, how we're a republic. We're not a socialist country. You can't, but then again, what we're talking about today, real ID and all of that, how does that make us not socialist?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's that incrementalism we always talk about, Jenny, just that very slow, all these things roll out over years and years, and people
Yeah.
just don't realize it. Just that slow compliance.
And you get this mishmash that just starts to drive people crazy. And oh, well, look, Delta lets me do this. And oh, if only I could use this at this airport, which isn't a Delta hub. And you start to get people irritated that they lack the convenience, and then throw in the security question, and we're all of a sudden begging for a solution that's going to look like what? Biometric based, um, and blockchain enabled, or I think I should have said that the in reverse order. Digital ID, and it's all going to be tied to your every move. And if you look at what Homeland Security is doing in terms of using facial recognition, and when you look at what the airports and airlines are doing in terms of facial recognition, and and you're gonna put together the fact that every single thing that we do will be tracked and traced. You walk across the street. Somebody earlier mentioned the pay per mile uh,
Yeah, Kelly did.
surcharges. I
Yeah,
mean,
right.
they've had that task force going for several years here in Oklahoma. And how are they going to charge you for using the roads? Like, this goes back to what I'm raising with this future of American transportation. Um, they're going to do it with all of the cameras that can identify your face, your vehicle, and it's going to be verifiable through a, a digital identity credential that's accessible to all of the Homeland Security enterprise organizations. And we just read that it's going to be the biggest business hub for for biometric identity solutions.
Well, and we just
Okay.
read that it's to protect the Homeland Security Institute
Enterprise.
Yeah.
enterprise.
But
Yeah.
look how long it's been going on, and think of the pop culture conditioning. You go back to
Yeah.
movies like Minority Report, Demolition Man back in the 90s. I don't know if you ever saw that movie, Demolition Man, with Wesley Snipes and Sylvester Stallone, where
I think I did.
he was a criminal and they had to do all this crazy stuff. That was the first time I was like, retinal scanning and eye scanning and all this
Oh,
stuff was
yeah.
in that movie. And I mean, they've been preparing, paving the road with pop culture, this stuff for a long time too.
Yeah. All those change makers, and you flatter people. I think, didn't we talk about that last time? So you have the nonprofits, and they offer grants to legislators, and the legislators are flattered by it.
Yeah.
Or you have other programs that are run at the national level, and then you have state legislators who are flattered by the ability to participate in a national program. And they talk about that in the Federalist Papers.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a real danger, of political ambition, is the susceptibility to flattery. And everyone's going to start looking at the national scene, because the people who hold office in the states are going to want to do these big things. So how is a state like Oklahoma going to get to the implementation of real ID, or mobile driver's license, or clear identity management solutions? It's going to be through flattery.
Well,
Flattery.
and inconvenience. I mean, like you've
Mhm.
said before, the whole, well,
Inconvenience.
I don't want to have to sit here and do that, and I'll just do it because everybody else is doing it, and I want to get through.
Yeah.
Well, but before you came on, Julianne, I was asking Jenny, in your opinion, with maybe people you've talked to, the legislators down there, or whoever, I mean, are they really just ignorant of how much, how deep this subject really goes, or do they have any kind of concept as to this data collection in general? I mean, what do you think, like, their actual knowledge base is when it comes to this kind of stuff, and they're just passing these laws?
I mean, I'm going to speak in broad strokes here, but I think generally the people who have the ambition to run for office and the and the
You're starting to sound like my husband right off the bat. Go ahead.
and the the stamina to run for office and the resources in terms of leisure and the money that it takes, those folks have a very different skill set than careful researchers and deep thinkers. Like, so for the most part, I mean, I think that they can have that. I mean, I like to believe the good about most people. I know I'm always talking about dark things on this show, but I think most of our legislators, they have a general idea of what they think is good and what they think is bad, what they think is the best thing for our republic, and what they think is going to harm it. And they don't go very deep because they don't have a lot of time. They're interested in action and getting results rather than understanding the big picture through deep dives. And so they're very willing to outsource their knowledge acquisition to people whom they trust. And who do they trust? Lobbyists. Exactly.
The experts, Jenny, the experts. They just listen to the experts.
The people with the cash that are gonna, also reward them for, for being flattered, reward them by supporting their campaign. So I think a lot of that, all of that is to say that I think a lot of legislators actually don't know the real details. And I would say shame on them, because at this time in our state's history, in our country's history, you need to reevaluate what it means to be a benevolent representative of the American people. You need to reassess what you're doing in office right now. Like, if you care about the future of this country, you need to stop and think, do I just need to have a superficial understanding of left versus right, left bad, right good? Oh, yeah, I'm going to do these broad strokes. No. If you want to do any good for the American people and for the people of Oklahoma, you need to say, it is my duty to understand these issues deeply and to get a big picture understanding so that I can protect and defend the rights and liberties of my constituents. And they are the only reason why I'm in this office. What's it going to take to get legislators to do that, to have that, reevaluation of their own activity? It's going to take massive public outcry, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
or
but
a
we just
miracle.
talked about that the other day with with Bullard, Senator Bullard. And, he said that one of the things that George Washington said was that the problem with liberty is that people really have to feel the pinch and feel pain to figure out how to make that work. And Senator Bullard was like, we're not there yet. I mean, people just don't feel the desire to want to be educated or to know about these things. And it's all about convenience. And Lisa said about the legislators, oh, they know. No one gets as high up as a rep or a senator or a governor without knowing. And I would kind of disagree with Lisa there, because we put them in office. So that's how they get there in the first place. What happens is we perpetuate that, and they figure out how, like Langford, I would love to see what his financial bottom line was when he went in and what it is now. I just saw something on X this morning. I'm not kidding. I just saw something on X this morning. Joe Rogan posted it, and it was a moving graph where it showed the S&P. Okay, so here's the S&P, and it showed the stock portfolios of legislators. And so here's the S&P.
Yeah.
What does that say? Insider trading, insider trading, insider trading all day. That's exactly what that says. So, yes, absolutely. What happens is that these people, we put them there, so they didn't have that power initially. We put them there. They, like Governor Stitt, he had power, but it was in a different realm, right? It wasn't power. It was power over the people that he employed, but it wasn't power over the entire state of Oklahoma like it is now. We put him in that position. But what have we found out that's been happening with him as he's been elected? He goes outside the state to this meeting and that meeting, and oh, look, now he's vice chair of the state of the National Governors Association with the most liberal Democrat governor that we have in the nation outside of maybe California's. And so we're not expecting to think that that's going to rub off on him and he's going to come back with different theories that he learned at this, international I mean, it's so much BS. If we could elect them and put them in a box that only we had the key to, and we let them get out to do certain things that we had approved, that would be great. But that's not the way it works. It's like you said, they're flattered. Oh, look, I get to go to this thing, and now I'm vice chair of the National Governors Association, or in Mary Fallon's case, I'm chair of the National Governors Association. So I'm going to bring about every Obama era program that we can get, because that's what we do here at the National Governors Association. I mean,
well, I'm just like that. Look at that insider education association with Adam Pugh and who was it, Caldwell or whoever.
Yes,
I mean,
yes, that Visit was telling us about.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing. Lisa says, but most don't want to protect our rights and liberties, not those in office right now anyway, with very few exceptions. I don't think, and again, I'm just going to play semantics with you, Lisa. I don't think it's that they don't want to. They don't even know how. They don't even know that that's their job. I mean, you're up here, they're way down here.
Yeah, I think, I mean, to Lisa's point, I think governors definitely do know, and probably a lot of senators do know. And I think, when I look at state representatives, it seems, it does seem very plausible to me. I mean, I'm convinced that a lot of them don't really know, because you can't get into office without pleasing different gatekeeper organizations. And the gatekeeper organizations don't want to reveal who they are. So they pick these naive and,
easily malleable.
Yes, easily malleable people to do their dirty work. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I'll tell you, I've never met Langford in person, but he looks like a doofus to me. And, does he really know? Does he really understand what's going on? Maybe by this time now, maybe he is so fully invested in their system that maybe he has started to figure it out. But it's like C.S. Lewis, he describes in one of his texts. I was trying to remember which one it was and look it up the other day, but I couldn't find it. But he talks about how people are sucked into following these terrible programs. And I'm convinced that C.S. Lewis understood what was going on with our world,
Yes, I do
and he
too.
says, first you agree to go to lunch with someone and you have a couple of nice conversations. And then this person, maybe asks a favor of you. And then maybe offers you some sort of reward, and you keep having these conversations, and it doesn't take very long for you to really become a scoundrel, you know?
They
And
compromise them.
yeah, and so it sort of works in, incrementally, and then by the time you realize that you also are a scoundrel, you are in so deep that you can't quit being a scoundrel without fear of retaliation.
Yeah.
So, but like when you look at how people make it onto school boards, or different stakeholder councils, it seems that they're always, let's say you have a school board of 7 people, you might have 5 people who are they are bought into the program fully. They don't question it. Then you
Right.
have maybe one person who is sort of an independent, kind of free thinker, questioner, but maybe not a very strong personality. And then you have someone who is opposition, and they have a very strong personality, but they only have one position and a constituent base or supporter base that is easy to vilify. And that seems like a pretty general template, that you can view across the board. And
Well,
so people put all their hopes on that one opposition person and maybe the independent person, and and they that like channels or captures their energies and hopes, and they think change is going to occur. But
I
they
think
don't realize
Gracie's
that gatekeepers have allowed all of that to happen. And unless you really get an entire panel of people who are more afraid of the public than they are, beholden to the gatekeepers, we are not going to have any change.
Yeah, and I think Gracie summed it up really well. She said, seems like sometimes the newer politicians have the right intentions, but they get in over their head and someone comes along to mentor them, which usually turns out to be indoctrination. And so I think I think Gracie hit it totally on the head there, because she is, I think that's exactly what happens. And the things, because I had this kind of stuff said to me. Well, that's not the way we do things. Well, that's the way I do things.
Yeah.
But so many people don't, when they bump up against that wall of, well, but that's not how we do things, they stop.
Mm-hmm.
It's a full stop for them. Oh, okay. Well, we don't do it like that. Okay. Well, all right.
Yeah, but that's how they've been trained, Jenny. They're all through all of education, through primary education, secondary education. They're just trained to follow, a higher order.
Well, and it's sad, but I think there is a lot of that. I do think it's that training. Look, the bell rings, I'm moving. Look, I'm sitting down, the teacher's telling me what to do. I'm doing what the teacher says. I do think that there is a lot of that, which is probably why my kids are very much, I'll do what I want. Thank you very much. I probably wasn't as regimented. What about that? Nope, not doing that. Okay, honey.
I mean, every system of control works that way. I mean, the military works that way.
Yes.
The school system works that way. Business works that way. I mean, how do we get over that when it comes to government, or want to expect something different when that's literally how everything else works?
Well, but here's the thing.
I don't know.
But here's the thing, and I completely agree with you, and I'm not disagreeing with you, Michael. You're right. I mean, business works that way, and now, but I will say the military has to work that way. I mean, you're dealing with a situation in which you're having to protect your life and the lives of others, and you have to do what your commander says, or you die and you kill other people. So the military, you can't include that one because it's a totally different thing. But and you're right about business, because if you're going to work for me, you're going to do things my way, because this is my business and I know how it works. And if you don't want to do that, you don't have to be here. So I get that. But here's where I think the issue is. You are educated in a system from K to 12. This is before you get into business. This is before you go to the military. This is the problem right here. Because if you had people educated, like apparently my kids were, they'll look at you and go, I don't care what you're saying about that. It doesn't make any difference to me because I don't think that that's the way it should work. So that's wherein I think the whole entire problem lies is you can get out and go to work for a businessman who says, no, I'm sorry, it's my business. We're going to do it this way. And that's the way we're going to do it. And still keep your framework of modality. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. Your the sense of who you are, right? I mean, your morals, your values, you can keep that and say, okay, well, yeah, I get it, but I'm not going to do, I know it's your business, but I'm not going to do this. So either you're going to have to fire me or we're going to have to work around this little issue. And then that works. But the problem that we have is the K-12 indoctrination in these schools that make kids go, okay, well, sure, we do it like that. Okay. Gracie says control is the foundation for indoctrination. And I do think that is part of the problem with the public school. It's all about control. The bell rings, you move, the bell rings, you sit down, the teacher says this. It's all meant to be a certain, know.
You're producing employees, automatons that will just follow orders and do what you say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think there are some people, like us. But you've even said, Julianne, that it took you a little bit to wake up too, that you had to get red pilled and go, whoop, oh, that's not,
I didn't know what was going on because I wasn't paying attention I was reading old books, And so, and I didn't read the news because it irritated me. And I didn't read corporate white papers because who cares about that when you can read Plato? So it did. I mean, it wasn't until, about 6 years ago that I really realized what was going on. So I get it, that, but with the insanity that is going on in our world, I mean, everyone is touched by this, or they should be. Everyone should at least know that something's off. And I don't want to come at this from oh, well, I didn't get it for so long, but now you should. But I think that with COVID, that was a turning point.
Yeah. 100%.
I mean, we've had multiple turning points that did not exactly, like 9/11 didn't get my attention in the way that it should have, like to really get me to understand what had happened there.
That was my massive change. 9/11 was my massive change.
Well, and it was for so many people. And I remember, when actually I was doing a study abroad in Argentina at the time. And so I was not stateside, and I had to watch all of it on the news in Spanish in another country. And so I think that the US, that there were a lot of people who were put in a trance. I mean, I don't want to get weird here, Jenny, but I think because I wasn't here, that was one of the things that sort of helped protect my ability to see through these things later on in life, but also I didn't understand the full significance until I kind of got back, but then I was still studying my old books for a bit. But once I realized what was going on with the takeover of TU and with the data collection and all of the surveillance, it didn't take very long at all to realize, oh, this is what 9/11 was exactly about. It was about it was a weird ritual. It was a tool for hypnotizing the American public and making them cry for security and making them say, oh, yes, we must allow TSA to prohibit you from taking a water bottle on an airplane because there could be a bomb or something made out of this. I mean, it's an absolute insanity. But so really from COVID on, and with the whacked out elections, with the goofy, embarrassing things that are going on in politics, it is embarrassing.
Well, and
Then I think people, we're at a point where we should know better.
yeah, but I kind of am with Harold, because it's like, I do think there's
Yeah.
some kind of I think so.
Television.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. So, for most people who don't know, I grew up in advertising. That's what I did for the first 8 years of my adult life, as I was in the advertising business. And now this was back in the 80s. So we weren't doing all of the, goofy, creepy, but the research was being done in the late 70s. And it was starting to get implemented in the 80s. I just didn't end up seeing it. We weren't in New York or LA, so it wasn't like we were going to get that immediately. It filters in, but the advertisements, they have literal people that figure out exactly how you can indoctrinate people through advertising. The certain keywords that they say, oh well, I need a bag of Cheetos, it's creepy. And so I tend to agree with Harold that, and like you said earlier, Michael, about them, and you said this before too, Julianne, about movies and about how movies predicate what the globalists want you to be doing, right? Like you were just talking about the movies with the oh, look, you can put your eye on this and it lets you into this room, kind of oh, isn't that cool, kind of a thing. James Bond, ooh, look at all this biotech and how cool that is. And we're told it's cool, but we're never told the downside. I mean, there are rare movies that come out where you see things like, the totalitarianism. I think Minority Report probably was the best movie that I can think of that was a real box office Hollywood movie that allowed you to see, oh crap, if we take this to the end, here's what ends up happening. You get arrested for stuff that you're just thinking about.
Yeah. Pre-crime.
Yes, pre-crime.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know, maybe they did it because they thought, well, it's very, science fiction. There's this girl in a pit in water, and nobody's going to put that together. I don't know. Maybe that's.
I think when it comes to evil, Jenny, I think that there's metaphysics involved, and they have to announce what they're doing. They have to tell you what they're going to do. Maybe in the form of a movie or this or a book or whatever, but they have to tell you, that they're going to do this stuff. So, metaphysically in the universe or whatever, they're able to do it against you.
Yeah. Revelation of the method, right?
That's what I think.
Yeah.
What, Julianne?
It's the revelation of the method.
Yeah. That 100%. That's what I believe, Julianne.
Because like people, like forces that are bent on destruction, they actually want to destroy your very ability to choose or to resist or to even understand yourself as a self that can stand up to these things. And so they really want you to consent to your own destruction, because it's like a sacrifice of the self. And that
that's gross. Yeah.
It really is.
That's very satanic for sure.
Yeah. It's like a seduction. I mean, there's a really great novel that I used to teach in one of my classes on the Enlightenment. It's Dangerous Liaisons.
Oh, yeah.
There was a film, and it's an excellent film with, who is it?
John Malkovich.
Yeah, and Glenn Close. Yeah. And, these seducers, they want Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yes.
Played the other character. They want her to give up herself, like to sacrifice herself. And so I think, when we're shown these things early on and that revelation of the method, it's part of getting us to say, I'm going to accept this, I know it's bad. Minority Report is a terrifying depiction of what could happen, but but you somehow have to consent to it. And that's, I mean, that's on a much darker level, the exact dynamic that you were talking about, Jenny, with education and with people who just, when they hear the phrase, this is how we do it here, instead of saying, wait, well, why do you do it that way? I mean, you know, people, they hear that, and like you said, they're shut down. They don't even have the wherewithal to ask for an explanation. If we could get just to that point, that would be a big win. And
Well,
so,
and I think, you know, like that's what got me in trouble with the state election board, right? Me saying,
yeah,
why are you doing this? This isn't the law. I mean, I need
that's
to
because you're
know,
awesome, Jenny.
right? I
You
mean,
will forever be a hero of mine because of that. That was amazing.
well, but here's the thing though. I mean, I then had to go out and get an attorney, and you know, you have to put some work into it, and nobody wants to take that time, and they don't want to get into trouble. I mean, one of the things that I was telling the attorney when she called, you know, because we were talking about the case, and I said, you know, she said, well, what exactly were your emotional damages? And I said, well, you know, my dad calls me and goes, what kind of trouble did you get into here? What were you doing? And I'm like, are you kidding me? How does that not work? So people don't want to be put in that situation
Well,
where
and don't,
people, you know, are saying, oh my gosh, what did Jenny do? She did something wrong because they're after her. So
yeah.
people don't want to be in that situation. I mean, I don't care. I mean, I don't
Yeah,
care.
don't forget, Jenny, how they tried to threaten you by sticking the
Oh
DA on you also,
yeah.
you know,
Oh
to make an example.
yeah.
Make
Yeah.
an example
Well,
to
and
somebody else.
to keep me quiet, you know, if you don't sit down and be quiet, we'll just, you know, and because you weren't, we'll stick the DA and the AG on you and they'll find something to get you on. Well, number one, good luck. But number two, I mean, people don't, that's the problem. We just have not trained people. I came out like that. I mean, my joke has always been I slapped the doctor didn't slap me. So I came out that way. I've always been a problem child, but that's not a lot of people. I mean, even, you know, 12 years in the school system couldn't fix me. You know, I just am one of those unfixable people. But there are a lot of people who succumb. There are a lot of people who are like, oh, I know this is right, but I can't say anything because I'm going to get in trouble or somebody will think bad about me. And then they don't. And that's what and I don't know how to get past that. How do we get over that hump? How do we say, here, we'll embrace you. I promise we'll take care of you if you just stand up to tyranny, you know, and do the right thing. I don't know how you fix it.
I don't know either. I mean, I paid the $300 fine 7 years ago, you
Instead of
know?
going to court and going,
Oh, I still had to go to court, but I could have, I mean, I didn't know really at the time what I could have done. But you know, but I understand, like, there are times when in my case, then I thought, I've got to pay the $300, stand through this humiliating and really depressing court situation, and then I can just go on with life. Now
well,
I now I think, what would I have done differently, you know? But yeah, it's going to take people a while to get there.
you know, unfortunately, I think so too. I think something is going to happen. I always love it when my rooster gets in my front flower bed and decides he's got an issue while I'm on the podcast. Cause then I play it back and I'm like, oh, well, good job, Handy. You made quite the noise during the podcast.
He's saying, you've been on this show for 1 hour and 45
I know
minutes,
we need
and
to
I'm
get
hungry.
off of that. I will say though, Gracie said my dad used to call the TV the one-eyed devil, and my youngest son, he loved that song, Silence, The Sound of Silence.
Oh yeah.
He loved that song, and one day we were talking about it, and I said, you know, I'm just curious, why do you like that song? And he goes, well, do you even know what it's about? And I said, silence? And he goes, no, it's about the invention of the television and how it killed silence and silent thought in America. And I was like, oh my gosh, I never thought that before. So when you listen to it again, realize that's what that was about. And Gracie's right. It is easier
Yeah.
sometimes to step back rather than push forward. It is. And I'm not faulting other people. It's like I said, I'm me. That's where you get that. You can't fix that. But it is hard for a lot of people to do it. And I can't say I understand it, because my reaction is always to push back, not step back. But there are a lot but again, I'm a small part of the, population, and I understand that, but there's got to be a way, to say, we'll embrace you if you do, we'll get behind you if you do this. So I don't know. I don't
Well,
know.
I think it is turning though, Jenny, because we've talked about it a couple times. This show here wasn't even needed, 10 years ago. Now it is needed. Now there's more and more people like this with shows like this. There's more and more people, like Julianne, that are just, questioning and researching and bringing information to the public. I mean, a lot of the stuff like this, I mean, it was unheard of 10 or 20 years ago. Now, you've got a pretty good chunk of people, I think, that are starting to, really at least ask some questions, have some thought and ask some questions, and not just completely go along with whatever the narrative is.
Julianne can't hear us.
Oh,
We're going to have to do sign language, and I don't know sign language. Okay. So, well, it's 1:45 anyway, so I'm just going to chat with her and tell her we'll just say goodbye for today.
Yeah.
Except I didn't know how to spell.
I wish she could hear us, because I wanted to tell her a funny TSA story that I had with the body scanners.
Hold on. Okay, before you do that, because this is Gracie, you and I are apples from the same tree. This is always what I said. And when we were in school, I would say, see this? It's not just for social media. You can actually look stuff up on it. So yes, research is your best friend. Okay, go ahead. Tell your funny TSA story.
Well, no, I want to tell it to Julianne so she can hear it.
Well, Julianne can't
hear it.
Well, she can play it back later.
Yeah. Well, the first time I had a run in, I'd never go through body scanner. I mean, period. I'd never go through body scanner. So the first run in I had was the first serious run in I had was down in Miami. So I was flying back to Oklahoma City. I was down in Miami. I'm walking up there, and I'm in the line. So a lot of times they have lines that don't go through the scanners, and they have lines that go right. So I'm in the line that's not going through the scanner. So right when it comes to like 2 or 3 people before me, get that, read that book.
Thanks, Julianne.
Right when it comes to like 2 or 3 people,
that was a tough day.
It switches over to the body scanner line.
Okay.
So I'm getting up there, and I walk up there, and I just tell the guy, I said, I'm opt out. So this guy, he starts doing this dance. Okay. This TSA guy, he starts doing this dance. He's like, opt out over here, opt out. There's like 1,000 people around. He's like, we got an opt out over here. You know what they did? They took me straight across, and like 20, 30 feet over, just straight to the side of me, there's a clear, just a glass box, like a giant cell, a giant glass cell. So he goes, I got to process some of these other people. So we're just going to have to, they went and put me in that box. I'm standing there for like 15 minutes.
God, are you joking?
Yeah, I'm in this glass cage over here. Everybody's just looking at me. They're making an example of me.
Yeah.
And the guy's over there. See what happens when you opt out? I mean, he's literally saying that. He's literally saying that. So finally, I'm knocking on there and it's like, hey, I need to get going here. So they finally come over, pat me down, put me through there. But that was my first serious deal with body scanner.
I can't even believe Gracie says like you're on display. Yeah, they were making 100%. an example out of you.
100%. Well, I mean, the guy starts doing a dance. He's like, "Oh, we got another opt out." He's doing all this crazy stuff. I mean, I was just like, "What is going on?"
Yeah, well, they have to make, they have to make an example out of you. They have to make it a big deal.
But that was in the
So,
early days. That was like when they first started putting all those in.
well, I think I told you when I came back from when I was going to Salt Lake, because it happened in Oklahoma City and I wasn't expecting it. I handed them my ticket and she goes, just move over here. She didn't even tell me what she was doing. And I just moved and they took a picture. They facial scanned me. And I was so pissed about that. I just was so pissed about it. I'm like, this time I'm going to stand way far away and I'm going, you're not facial scanning me. I'll give you my ticket, but I'm not coming near there. I mean, it's so we have allowed ourselves to become animals in a zoo. We
Yeah.
live in the zoo of the United States, and other people can come and visit us in the zoo, and we can go visit other parts of the zoo, but we're still in a zoo. I mean, we're locked down. We have keepers that carry our little, information with us and know what we eat. And, I mean, I'm going to start making a meme about that, just a whole series of being an animal in the American zoo, because that's what we are. Our freedom, we have basic freedom. I can go to the grocery store if I want to, whenever I want. But other than that, it's pretty limited. And people just don't understand how limited it is.
Yeah.
So before we get off of here, I want to bring in something that I did yesterday. And that's an article I put up yesterday. So in the House yesterday, there was a bill that repealed a state law which allows non-citizens to become law enforcement officers. So I don't know that I certainly didn't know that we had a law in the books that allowed non-citizens to become law officers, but we do. And that bill actually went down on the House floor. So you had more
You want me to put that on the screen? That's not on the screen. Do you want me to put it up there?
Oh my goodness. Yes, please. I forget to do that part. Thank you so much. I don't think most people knew that we had this law in the first place. I didn't. But our friend Jay Stiegel, Representative Jay Stiegel, texted me yesterday morning and he goes, do you know about this? And I was like, no. So apparently in the bill, it had said that people that are eligible for employment as peace officers could have resident alias status pursuant to an employment eligibility verification form from the United States Citizen and Immigration Services. So Rick West wrote a bill to repeal this. So here's his language. He repealed it and then he added this new language. That's all the bill was. No person shall be certified as a police or peace officer by the council or be employed by the state, county, city, or any political subdivision thereof who is a permanent resident alien, provided, however, that any person who has been trained and certified by the council, and he's talking about CLEAT, and is actively employed as a full-time peace officer as of November 1st, 2025, should not be subject. So then Daniel, this is what Siegel sent me, was Daniel Horowitz's tweet about this. And I went, oh my goodness. So I started doing a little bit of research, and this is what Siegel said to me. Imagine living in a state where just last year the people voted to ensure that only citizens could vote, yet the Oklahoma House of Representatives defiantly ensures the ability for non-citizens to enforce the law.
Wow.
That makes absolutely no sense to me. Oh my goodness. And then Horowitz said in his post, I get it that many of them are uncomfortable excluding legal permanent residents. Yes, all private sector jobs are open to them. However, we are a nation of citizens and we should not have non-citizens with law enforcement powers over citizens. How in the world do you allow a non-citizen to arrest a citizen? How does that even work? So here's the thing that's very interesting to me. These are all the nays on that bill. And I put them in here because I want everybody to know who they were. And look at all the excused. Oh my goodness. And here's the interesting thing, another interesting thing. Culver, Duell, Ford, Harris, Kane, Manger, and Sterling all voted to allow the bill to pass out of their committee. But then when it came to the floor, they voted no. So I went and talked to, and this was the yes, just so that we know who our friends are, who understand exactly how America should work. And I called all of these people the squishy middle. But then, when you talk about it, and so here's Rick West, Representative Rick West. I texted him and asked him for a comment on the story. And so he sent me a comment. And basically what he said was he thought that this law had been put into effect when they started CLEAT. So it's a really old law, but Rick has tried to repeal it like 2 or 3 other times. And he said in the past, it's sailed through the House. That's never had a problem, but the Senate has blocked it from a hearing. So this year it gets to the floor and it's voted down in the House. And he said, I was absolutely shocked because it was pretty much like the mood. It was like the mood that was so much different. And he basically said that people were telling him things like, well, don't we need more police officers? And like the same thing they say about teachers, right? Oh, well, we can have anybody be a teacher because we need them. Right?
Yeah.
So we'll have an alligator be a teacher because we need somebody in that classroom. So it's the same thing. He said, we need these people. We have a shortage of law enforcement, and that surprised him. So I think honestly, this thing should really concern all conservative Oklahomans. And if you want to know who the squishy middle people are that are voting, you need to look on this bill. And I also included the bill on the anti-Semitism vote that was recently done that we talked to Senator Bullard about yesterday or on Wednesday. That's just crazy. Any law enforcement officer can arrest or detain anybody who's created any crime. Any crime. We don't ask you, and we shouldn't ask you, why did you commit the crime? Because I hate Jews, right? Or because I hate this group or that group or whatever. We don't ask them that. We just stop them from committing crimes and punish them if they've committed the crime, right? We don't ask them why they committed the crime. So none of this is necessary. But guys, I just can't even believe how bad this is getting, that these representatives and senators seem to want to farm out our First Amendment rights, our citizenship. I just don't even know how to explain it. It's really bad juju.
Yeah.
100%. So, all right. So Gracie says U.S. National Zoo. Yeah, I think so. We need to start a fund for bail money for those of us who will not remain at a traffic stop with a cop who isn't an actual American citizen. It's almost like the conditions were made intentionally dangerous to manufacture
that's
consensus.
Responding to Harold's MK Ultra comment.
Yes, exactly. And the enforcement of the anti-Semitic law will be a joke. And that's exactly the point, though, isn't it, Harold? And one of the things that David Bullard said to us the other day, that one of the that they patterned this law on a very liberal website that produces things. And one of the things that they can say that you can get in trouble for is saying Jesus was killed by the Jews. That's anti-Semitic to say. Isn't that odd? I'm pretty sure if you read the Bible, there were the Jews who killed Jesus. Because they even, remember, Pilate even asked them, who do you want? So anyway, it's very upsetting and frustrating, but I don't know what else we're going to do until more people wake up. We didn't have a whole bunch of people on today. Our regular audience was kind of not here, and I'm kind of surprised because But although I will say this, Michael, I think people don't like to hear about the real ID stuff because they don't want to know. They know that their data is being taken, and they know that they're doing it because they want to have the convenience of opening their phone with a thumb, or they want the convenience of doing this or that or the other thing. And they don't want you telling them that that's bad, because then they'd have to do something about it. It's like everything else we talk about.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
All right.
And I
Well,
was just thinking that same thing that CLQD just
yeah.
said. I was thinking about the Noahide laws. And there's so much. I don't even know the right word to say, but there's just so much kind of read into that also, where I've seen a lot of people bringing up a lot of instances with those. I don't know that much about them, but it just reminded me of that.
Is it anti-Semitic to say Jesus was killed by Jews if you're part Jewish?
Probably.
I wouldn't trust the government, but then that's just me. Well, thank you guys for who were with us today, and we do appreciate your comments. Thank you so much for being so lively and commenting about this today. And please do share this with your friends. I just got an announcement from Facebook the other day, which I think is fine. I'm not complaining about this at all. I'm just warning. Facebook is going to stop keeping the live videos on their page for any longer than 30 days, which I think is great, because my whole idea behind keeping the data centers down is to quit storing data. So I'm all fine with that. If you want to find them, they are actually stored on YouTube and Rumble. So you can go back to our channels there and find them if you can't find them on Facebook. So that's, it's all fine. But share from Rumble or YouTube, and then that way we make sure that they're there. Don't necessarily share from Facebook. So anything else for today, Michael?
No, I did want to touch on one thing, though. When you were talking about your advertising history and all that indoctrination and MK Ultra, I mean, there is actually a lot to that with today's technology, especially the MK Ultra side and the programming side. You remember Sean Parker, who was the Napster guy, the music?
Oh, I
The
do
music guy, Sean
remember.
Parker, who created Napster, the share-to-share, music deal. He was one of Zuckerberg's buddies. He was kind of one of the early guys in on Facebook.
Okay.
And Zuckerberg turned his back on everybody, and everybody got shafted. But
Right.
But Sean Parker, I saw him in an interview. I don't know. There's probably at least 10 years ago, probably longer, maybe 15 years ago, and he was talking about all the stuff they did in Facebook. Like to get the colors just right. They had people hooked up, and they were actually scanning, getting, testing their dopamine in their blood and stuff when they would change like the color or size of a check mark or this or that. I mean, it was intense. It was the testing. Yeah, the testing that went into creating what you see now was so on just a technological massive level. But I just want to make a note that, yes, in my opinion, if you're looking at any screen in today's time, because these aren't analog screens anymore, these are all digital. There's all kinds of stuff that can be embedded or done, or that you can't see with your eyes, doesn't mean it's not there.
Right.
And I think that it's pretty seriously, in my opinion, needs to be studied and sent out to the public.
Well, it's probably been studied, and it may have even been sent out to the public, but it gets suppressed.
Yeah.
And then so people don't see it. And again, I think people don't want to know. Oh, Lisa says you have to show off your shirt before we get off.
Look what she's got on there. All right, we'll show the shirt off.
The freaking frogs, the water. It's hysterical.
Yeah. Just for Lisa.
That's funny. All right. Well, thank you again for being with us today. We really, really appreciate it. And have a great weekend. And we'll see you again next Wednesday. So far, believe it or not, we don't have a guest for next Wednesday. I don't remember the last time this ever happened. So we may just come on and it'll be you and me talking about whatever we want to talk about and having people chime in and talk about what they want to talk about. So we'll have to see how that works. But right now, that's where we're going for Wednesday.
Yeah.
So have a great weekend, and we hope to see you next week. So thanks for tuning in. Bye.